You want the short answer? No. You want the long answer? Definitely not. You want the overcomplicated, overstuffed, insane answer? Maybe, but not likely. You want the actual answer? Well, that's what you're here for. Thank you to our $5 patrons, Red Wolf 4765, Midnight Gem Lord Sean, and Demix LNT. Another thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Wolf 4765. Another thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha and Idemokami. And another very big thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. Before I am this breakdown / discussion on whether or not the blessed child of Jujutsu, Yuta Okkotsu, could even dare defeat the mighty accursed general of the 10 shadows technique, Mahoraga. Please leave your own listen whether or not Yuta could beat Mahoraga in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, hit the notifications to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon below. You support for as low as $1 a month. You get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the discussion. What's up, guys? Welcome to here, and here we are to talk about whether or not Yuta could actually defeat Mahoraga. And I know this feels like a weird question to be asking, right? And you may be wondering, well, Pencil, if you're going to ask this question anyway, why not make it like an actual versus battle? Well, one, because this was supposed to be part of an actual versus battle. It was going to be Yuta versus 15-Finger Maguna. But then I sat back, got to the ability section after writing the strength and power portions, along with the speed portions, and then realized that Mahoraga is kind of an entirely separate beast, but not that much of an entirely separate beast that it deserves its own video. But it does deserve its own video, and that's what we're here for. And it really got me thinking, maybe Yuta doesn't actually have to worry about fighting Sukuna. Maybe he needs to worry about fighting Mahoraga, because I don't think Yuta could actually beat Mahoraga, and there are a couple reasons why. Number one, the big issue from round start. I don't know how to put this in a way that the Yuta fans are going to like, so I'm just going to be honest with you. Yuta's AP kind of sucks. Sucks is inappropriate. Yuta's AP kind of sucks relative to, Mahoraga. And specifically, Mahoraga's durability. Because, notably, Mahoraga has two fights. And realistically, the second one barely counts as a fight. It's kind of just an interaction. But 2 fights. One of those fights is against 15-Finger Sukuna in Itadori's body. And the other fight is against Shirozu. And both of those fights kind of put Mahoraga's durability way out of Yuta's range of damage. So here's the thing, right? Base Yuta. Let's just talk about base first. I think most people know that base Yuta has no chance. But let's just mention base. Yeah, base Yuta could never even begin to damage Mahoraga. For reference, base Yuta, when simply trying to hit Uro, could not do it. Simply could not do it. Could not land a hit, could not do any damage to her. When base Yuta ran up on Ryu, or even full power Yuta ran up on Ryu with just physical attacks, could do nothing to him. Absolutely nothing at all. Mahoraga ate a cleave and a dismantle straight to the dome piece. Straight, scrumdiddlyumptious. Well, just a dismantle, I believe. But still, 8 dismantle from 15-Finger Sukuna. I don't think Yuta has anything that's on that level with his regular physicals. Even Yuta's sword, as nice as that sword is, it could get blocked by Kurorushi. I don't think I need to explain to you that Mahoraga is on an entirely different level than Kurorushi. So, physically, Yuta has no way. He cannot just beat Mahoraga to death. And even if he tried, Mahoraga would just adapt to the punches. And then the next major issue is that I'm not sure Mahoraga can actually, be taken out in one hit by Yuta, because Yuta doesn't actually have any big bombastic one-shot techniques. Because the main thing is, with Mahoraga, you need to hit him hard enough so that he cannot regenerate. That is your win con against Mahoraga. That's the only way you can actually get Mahoraga up out of here. And Yuta, even at his full power, doesn't really have anything that would like one-shot Mahoraga. Notably, there could be like maybe at least confirmed Yuta stuff, right? There's some hypothetical headcanon Yuta stuff that you could say, oh, well, maybe he has access to. Like, if you think he has Jacob's Ladder, that should work against Mahoraga, maybe. If he has something like, I don't know, Ryu's Granite Blast, the big massive one that like could vaporize an entire city block, then maybe that could do it. But at least for what we know that Yuta has, he has nothing that will like genuinely one-tap Mahoraga, because that's what you have to do. Because the thing is, even though Yuta has confirmed 3 separate techniques, none of those techniques will actually do the darn damage. Like, none of them. Like really think about it. The only hypothetical thing maybe is cursed speech. Like if Yuta opens up and says, die, and maybe Mahoraga does. But even then, I don't think so. Like, I don't know. I feel like if it were that easy, Inumaki could do it. No, I'm kidding. But I feel like Mahoraga may not even just perish to that, because you can resist cursed speech. But who knows? Mahoraga is not like the smartest creature out there, so maybe it would just perish. That's one win con Yuta has. Opening with cursed speech and just saying, die. So maybe that. Even then, that's a little bit unlikely in my opinion, just because of how tanky Mahoraga is shown to be and how much cursed energy it has. I feel like it would be able to eat the die with like some rebound, but even with that being the case, that's one win con that Yuta has. And realize, what is Yuta's like main source of power? Where does Yuta get all his juice from? Whether it be his technique, where he stores his techniques, excess of cursed energy, all that good stuff. The man who really has the actual hands in the relationship, like the person that can actually put paws on somebody. Yeah, it's not Yuta, it's Rika. The husk of Rika that was left over by Rika Orimoto after JJK 0. That thing's a cursed spirit. Not a Shikigami, it's specifically noted as a cursed spirit. It's weird, don't get me wrong, but Rika is pretty much noted to have all the same properties as her original cursed form. It's just that the soul isn't there anymore. And what does Mahoraga have? I mean, he has a blade that one-taps cursed spirits. Like, you know how Yuta can run up on cursed spirits and just smack them in the face or kiss them on the mouth in the case of Kurushi and just blow them up with RCT? Yeah, Mahoraga's sword just does that. Just like casually, just whoop, and then bada bing, bada boom, Rika's popped like a balloon. Like, I don't know. I don't think Rika has any special resistance to that. I think they would just get popped. Because if 15-Finger Sukuna believes that if he wasn't incarnated in human flesh, he would actually just be a goner by one tap of Mahoraga's sword, I'm sorry. I got more money on 15-Finger Sukuna being stronger than Queen of Curses, Rika Orimoto. So I'm just saying. I feel like that's the thing. So Mahoraga can one-tap Rika at any time. All it takes is one good hit. Rika tries to swing, gets swung on, and one-tapped. And speaking of swung, or swinging, or motion of any kind, I hate to say this, but I'm pretty confident in saying that Yuta would get darn near perception blitzed by Mahoraga. And now hear me out, right? So Yuta's best speed scaling puts him at like Ryu level, Earl level, like relatively special grade. Like, you know, it's still nice, but it's not anything too crazy. And we know for a fact that, at least from our understanding on how cursed energy reinforcement works, that the stronger your base is, like if you're more beefy in base with no cursed energy, once you actually give yourself some cursed energy reinforcement, well, your base speed will be factored into that. That's why Yuji's so dangerous once he unlocks cursed energy. Bro is pure hands, yeah, but he's pure hands in base already, so give him some cursed energy reinforcement, he's going to shoot through the roof. So for all intents and purposes, 15-Finger Sukuna in Itadori's body should be physically faster than 15-Finger Maguna. But let's say that's wrong. Let's just ignore the way that cursed energy reinforcement was said to work. Ryu, who Yuta showed direct relativity to, and Rika Orimoto, or at least the husk of Rika, also showed direct relativity to in terms of speed, was perception blitzed by 15-Finger Maguna. Let me repeat that. Perception blitzed. Now, whether you believe that Itadori Sukuna is faster or not, I think we can all agree they're both 15 finger. They should at bare minimum be relative to each other. That they should at least be equals in terms of raw speed and combat speed. And guess what? Sukuna actually got tagged by Mahoraga. Sukuna actually got tagged a couple times by Mahoraga in their little scuffle. And by a couple, I mean twice. But guess what? Ryu, who is relative to Yuta, could not even tag Maguna once. Yuta was still getting evenly boxed with by Ryu, if not Ryu having the slight advantage in combat speed, considering Ryu was kind of controlling their flow until the very end when Ryu was super duper fatigued. So Yuta's speed tier is definitively lower than Mahoraga's. Easily. Not even that hard. And since we know Mahoraga always opens up with a sword slash, and the sword always opens up being specialized for cursed spirits, all it takes is Rika getting perception blitzed and one tapped. And then Yuta doesn't even have his technique anymore. Like straight up, he just doesn't have it. So then you have base Yuta alone versus Mahoraga. And remember, base Yuta literally can't do anything. Like, I hate to say it, base Yuta has no way to actually beat Mahoraga. Because you can't expect base Yuta to beat Mahoraga to death. You can't expect base Yuta to slash Mahoraga to death. It would simply heal. It would simply heal nigh on instantaneously. And then immediately adapt so that Yuta couldn't even slash or punch it anymore. And then Yuta just dies. Like, let's be real. I've been stalling, but Yuta's just gonna die. Like, no matter what. Before you can even put the ring on, Mahoraga's gonna speed blitz and decapitate him. Like, Rika would not be able to interfere in time. I'm not even sure Rika could, like, actually physically hold Mahoraga in place. Like, you know how Rika popped out when it thought that Yuta was in danger? It was like, hey, yo, what's going on here? What's popping off? When it was, like, unfully manifested? Yeah, it would try to do that against Mahoraga, get its arms ripped off, and Yuta would still end up decapitated. Like, that's it. Yuta's just lacking. And, like, pretty much every stat, like being real. This isn't Yuta's fault, by the way. Like, Yuta's still, like, a top 10, maybe top 5 character in the verse. He just has a really bad matchup against Mahoraga. Because, like, most people have a bad matchup against Mahoraga. Like, none of Yuta's at least established techniques outside of maybe Cursed Speech could work. Because, like, what does he do? He tries to use Drew Shikigami technique. Maybe he sets up like an orbiting domain and then bada bing bada boom, he can take out Mahoraga because this technique would be shut down. But that's if he's even able to before he gets literally perception blitz. Mahoraga is pretty much always bloodlusted. Like, there's no in-character arguments you can make for Mahoraga. Like, it wouldn't play with you to like food. It wouldn't mess around. No, it's trying to execute him. Like, it simply appears and is like, shoot, it's that time again, boys. Let me just get to the chopping block. And he starts chopping blocks. Like, legitimately, Mahoraga's just like that. And none of Yuta's techniques will work. Tries to use Drew Shikigami technique, gets beheaded. Tries to use Uro's technique, gets beheaded. Tries to use Cursed Speech, gets beheaded. Or even if, let's just shove a controller up Mahoraga's butt and then put the controller down. Once again, unless Yuta opens up and says, die, Mahoraga's just going to sit there and face tank everything. And then, since Yuta has no big, bad, flashy attacks that can one-tap Mahoraga's just going to adapt and then stand there and be absolutely impervious to all damage that Yuta deals until you pick up the controller again. So, I don't know. Yuta's pretty much just stuck out of luck in dealing with Mahoraga. Mahoraga has better stats. He has a better overall ability, and he's literally built to annihilate Yuta's curse technique. That's one of the biggest weaknesses of having Rika being Yuta's curse technique. If you can beat Rika, if you can just destroy Rika, or force it to demanifest, or one way or another, you beat Yuta. Because Yuta doesn't have access to his technique without Rika. So you're kind of just stuck out of luck. And that's it. like legitimately. Yuta just has no win cons outside of a maybe early game die. Base Yuta has nothing. Full power Yuta has nothing. Full power Rika has nothing. Because once again, we got to remember, even if full power Rika does like a massive, or let's take full power Yuta, full power Rika, they do a massive love beam blast. It's still weaker than a granite blast. We know that for a fact. And Kurorushi, was able to somewhat survive a granite blast, even though it was weakened, with half of his body. If Mahoraga survives a big fat old love beam with half of its body, it's going to regenerate, nigh on instantaneously adapt to the energy attack, and then suddenly you're just stuck out of options. And I think this kind of just feeds into the fact that Mahoraga is just really, really hard to beat. Like, legitimately, for a majority of the verse, how do most characters beat Mahoraga? A character like Gojo. He has purple. As long as he doesn't use the limitless other than purple on Mahoraga and Mahoraga can adapt, he can one-tap Mahoraga with purple. I believe that. If purple can damage 20 Finger Sukuna, it can damage Mahoraga. For Sukuna, we literally see it. We saw the fight. Sukuna either drops domain before it adapts the domain style techniques and or the cutting of Cleave and Dismantle, and or he just opens the flame arrow on his dome head and absolutely vaporizes it. That's fine. But like, what is Kenny supposed to do against Mahoraga? I don't know, spam it with curses? Hope its domain takes it out? Like, I have no idea. I don't think Kenny, even with like Uzumaki, if Uzumaki powered by all the, 6,053 cursed spirits that Geto had in the battle against Yuta, if powered by all that and it was still weaker than Yuta's blast, I don't think that Kenny has anything up his sleeve that we know of that could just one-tap Mahoraga. Even someone like Maki or someone like Toji, who I'm about to make, I'm cooking a certain video about those two, which I know will have some people extremely happy and have some people extremely nettled. But even them, they don't really have a win con against Mahoraga because they don't have big, bombastic, flashy attacks. Oh no, they can slice through Mahoraga's durability with Soul Liberation Blade. Okay, it regenerates. It is now immune to soul attacks. Uh-oh, I guess they're stuck out of luck. Unless Inverted Spear of Heaven works, but once again, I don't think Toji or Maki could quickly Inverted Spear of Heaven Mahoraga to death. Not fast enough before Mahoraga adapts to Inverted Spear. And then, whoop, well, that's done. Shoot, what is a character like Hikari meant to do? Punch Mahoraga really, really hard? Okay, Mahoraga adapts to punching. I guess you just lose. Like, that's the thing. I guess you just lose. There's nothing else you could really do about that, buddy. Stuck out of luck. What does Kashimo do against Mahoraga? Kashimo hints up a bunch. Gets one lightning bolt off. Mahoraga takes damage from the lightning bolt. Heals off the damage from the lightning bolt. Now Kashimo's punches nor electricity work on Mahoraga. Like, legitimately, Mahoraga's just stupid. Like, he's legitimately stupid. Mainly because this is a verse that doesn't really specialize in, like, big, bombastic, crazy attacks. Like, purple is the exception. Uzumaki is the exception. Granite Blast is the exception. You usually have more pinpoint, tinier techniques because most things would get exercised by that. But Mahoraga is just built different. Like, absolutely different. There's just nothing you can really do to take out Mahoraga if your name is literally not Gojo Satoru or Ryomen Sukuna. They're just that different. And with all that being the case, like, okay, fine, pencil, sure, whatever. You can say that all you want. But then how would Yuta beat him, right? Because obviously Sukuna isn't whipping out the 10 shells just yet, so we may have to whip him out eventually. And we can't just have Gojo one-tapping all the 10 shadows. That'd be anticlimactic. So what would you add to Yuta Okkotsu so that he could actually defeat Mahoraga? Now, hypothetically, if you were to ask me that question, I'd just give him purple. No lie. Just give him purple. Or, like, legitimately, I would need to figure out something. Because with Yuta's current kit, unless you can say maybe Mahoraga could get affected by RCT, but considering he wields a blade that's made of positive cursed energy, I don't think he's actually that vulnerable to it. And, like, Sukuna doesn't just one-tap him with RCT. So I do think one-tapping him with RCT is out dimensions. And like I said, I don't believe Yuta rolling up to Mahoraga and just saying, die, is going to work all too well. I think the main way you buff Yuta appropriately to deal with Mahoraga is you got to do a couple things. Number one, you got to give him Granite Blast. You got to give him Granite Blast, and specifically the Granite Blast that is big enough to genuinely vaporize Mahoraga all at once. You need that one in particular. Not that little pea shooter that Ryu whipped out against Yuta or the one that Ryu whipped out against Karushi. No, he needs that big, fat, meaty girthy granite blast that nearly wiped out a chunk of the city, because that could hypothetically vaporize Mahoraga all at once. Because once again, even with characters like Sukuna one-tapping Ryu is stated to have the highest output, and Yuta should have the ability to copy Granite Blast as long as he understands it. So, I mean, a big ol' Granite Blast should be able to vaporize Mahoraga. But the big issue is just the stats disparity. That's the major issue. Because Mahoraga is not just going to stand there. And it's not like Granite Blast is going to make Yuta any faster. So you would need to give Yuta something that would allow him to be fast enough to hopefully at least survive Mahoraga. I wonder what this could be. Give him Projection Sorcery. Slap a little bit of Projection Sorcery onto that boy. Let him get his speed up. Let him get his stats up. Because the big issue is that since he's lacking in like general physical offenses and general speed relative to something like Mahoraga that's able to tag 15 finger, at least giving you the Projection Sorcery should give him something of an ability to keep up. But then again, 15 fingers should realistically be able to, I don't know, keep up directly with a Projection Sorcerer, if not drastically outpace them anyway. So like, I'm not even sure. That's the thing, it's so hard. I'm trying to think, what do you give Yuta to allow him to beat Mahoraga? I can't really think of anything, because the biggest issue isn't just the fact that Mahoraga can just face tank anything Yuta has to throw at him, thusly making all of Yuta's techniques and attacks inert, but also it's the fact that Mahoraga has such a massive stat advantage. No, I haven't even brought up the Yorozu fight. Like, it's not even a thing I mentioned. That's mainly because Mahoraga comes out later in that fight to simply deal with the domain expansion and one-tap the perfect spear. Which is fine, but that was with, like, adaptation. Mahoraga essentially had prep time before it ended up dealing with Yorozu. But even just dropping Mahoraga raw, straight raw, on Yuta's head is way too much for him. At least if I'm thinking of it right. If I'm thinking of it right, I think it's just way too much, because Yuta just lacks the tools, and tools that you could specifically give him to like try and deal with this, he may not know of. The only thing that he could hypothetically whip out is that perp. If he can drop the perp on top of Mahoraga, then I think that could be a win con, mainly because perp seems weird. Perp seems weird enough and large enough that it could actually swallow up Mahoraga, but the stat disparity is still there. No matter if you give Yuta Projection Sorcery, one, you have to assume that he mastered it. And two, you would have to assume that Mahoraga isn't fast enough to avoid it, even with Projection Sorcery, and I think Mahoraga is. Because Mahoraga's kind of Himothy. Once again, I'm going to mention this a lot in the Toji and Maki video, but direct scaling and being able to tag 15-finger Sukuna is like, unironically, some of the best speed scaling in the entire verse. If you happen to scale to 15-finger Sukuna and have enough stats that you could do extreme damage to anybody, if they happen to cross your path, then golly gee willikers, fellas, you may just be like a top 5 character in the verse. And that's where Mahoraga stands. With the 15-finger scaling and the direct durability and ability to adapt to any ability, Mahoraga's pretty much unstoppable. I think the only hope that Yuta has is if he steals Mahoraga's cursed technique. But even then it's just a stalemate. Because then neither of them will be able to harm. Well, that's once again if Yuta can survive, right? Let's say Yuta somehow he comes into the battle with like prep time and he like knows what Mahoraga's technique is and he opens with that. The thing about Mahoraga is that he can survive the first hit usually. Mahoraga can usually eat the first hit that will be landed on him. That's how he ate Dismantle, he adapted to Dismantle. He ate Sukuna's hits, he adapted to Sukuna's hits. He indirectly through Sukuna 8 creation attacks so he could withstand creation. But like, if Mahoraga comes in swinging and Yuta isn't adapted to Mahoraga coming in swinging, Yuta's still gonna be decapitated. He's still gonna be bounced off a wall and maybe have his neck broken. Like, legitimately, I don't see Yuta really tanking it. Like, notably, Yuta is super duper beefy, don't get me wrong, but I don't think Yuta's 15-finger Itadori body Sukuna beefy. And don't get me wrong, Mahoraga very explicitly does no actual damage to Sukuna in their encounter. None. Like, you can actually go reread it. You can go back to chapter 119, 118. He doesn't actually do any damage. But still, I don't think Yuta's going to be able to simply swallow being thrown through multiple buildings like 15 Finger Sukuna was. I don't think Yuta is going to be able to react to something that can actually tag and send 15 Finger Sukuna flying. So if that sharp blade comes straight for Yuta's dome piece, even if he has Mahoraga's technique, I think it's going to do at least some extreme damage. And then let's say Yuta magically survives that and then adapts to Mahoraga. Well, then they just stand there for eternity. And I don't know. Like, if Sukuna summons Mahoraga, I don't think Yuta's going to be able to outlive Sukuna. And I don't think Yuta's going to be able to get rid of Mahoraga. And I don't think any of the techniques that Yuta has directly apply to Rika. So the moment that Yuta, runs out of time with his 5 minutes, then Mahoraga slams the ball over again. And that's if Rika doesn't get randomly one-tapped within the 5 minutes, by literally a stray. That's the thing. Mahoraga is built too well to counter any singular sorcerer that doesn't have overwhelming deific power. Like, you desperately need the ability to one-tap him, and Yuta just doesn't have that. He doesn't have that. He only has the hacks with Curse Speech very specifically. But even then, I don't think that's enough. And I don't think RCT is going to work, considering Mahoraga wields a variation of RCT in of himself. So the two main win cons Yuta has are very, very iffy. And then he has no other ones. Mahoraga has a billion win cons. And by a billion, I mean he just needs to hit Yuta really, really hard. And then if Yuta, once again, let's say Yuta has like almost let's give Yuta every technique in the book. It's only going to last 5 minutes. It's not like he's JJK0 Yuta, where you could have every technique in the book forever. No, he's going to sit there for 5 minutes. His stats are still going to be too low to actually do any real damage to Mahoraga, or at least any permanent damage that'll actually put the big old beast down. Then Yuta's going to be like, oh no, my 5 minutes. Rika, wait, please come back. And then he's going to get one tapped. That's the thing. Yuta's stats just aren't good enough. It's crazy. It's crazy to say that about one of the 4 special grades, but Yuta's stats simply are not good enough to deal with Mahoraga. 9 out of 10 times, Mahoraga speed blitzes before Yuta can even put that little ring on. Rika gets her arms torn off trying to restrain Mahoraga, and Yuta gets decapitated. And then Mahoraga milli rocks on any block and proceeds to go try and fight whoever summoned it. If Megami summoned it, well, sorry Megami, stuck out of luck. I don't know why you're summoning Mahoraga on Yuta. If Sukuna summoned it, well, it's just gonna leave probably because Sukuna's gonna de-manifest it. But that's the big issue. Without the speed to keep up with Mahoraga and without the raw power to actually do any serious damage to Mahoraga, it doesn't matter how much cursed energy you have. It doesn't matter how beefy you are. It doesn't matter how many techniques you can pull out your booty meat. All that matters is if you have the ability to actually capitalize on those advantages. And unfortunately, as per the laws of nature, Yuta just doesn't. He doesn't. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there's some sort of special secret, super crazy argument you could make up for Yuta being able to beat Mahoraga. But at least right now, after considering it, after pausing numerous times while recording this, I can't think of one. I cannot see a path for victory for the blessed child of Jujutsu. I see nothing but destruction at the end of his road because he's literally facing an immovable object that happens to also be an unstoppable force. It's just rough stuff for Yuta. It's rough stuff for anybody. Like, notably, I picked out Yuta in particular, mainly because the recent chapters and Yuta himself gassed themselves up as like, oh yeah, if Sukuna fails, or Sukuna wins and Gojo fails, I can sub in, I can tag in. But Yuta versus Sukuna is a video for another day. Yuta versus Mahoraga is probably the immediate thing that we'd see. And I don't know. I don't really have any faith in Yuta for this one. Put Yuta up in pretty much, you can put him up against almost every other top tier, except for like the literal deific tiers like Gojo and Sukuna, and he could probably give them a good run for their money. I say he could probably put the pause on Geto, on Kinjaku, at least a little bit, even Hikari, Kashimo. You could definitely see Yuta pulling out some crazy stuff here, but not Mahoraga. Mahoraga is simply too different of a beast for Yuta on all levels, from an insanely broken ability that Yuta likely has no way around, to stats that simply blow Yuta's out of the water, whether they be speed or durability. And who knows, once again, if Sukuna believes he would be a goner if he was a cursed spirit, even though he took no damage from Mahoraga, maybe, just maybe, that would be more than enough to exercise Yuta's actual technique, and then he would be left with nothing, genuinely nothing, as the wheel spins and spins and spins, only to seal the blessed child's fate. It's rough stuff. Do you guys have anyone you think could actually beat Mahoraga? Like in a fair one-on-one fight, who do you think could beat Mahoraga outside of Gojo and Sakura? Let me know, because at the moment, I'm kind of blanking. Even as the #1 Kenny stan on the planet, I still don't think Kenny's even got that one. However, that's what I think. Please let what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure the notifications also miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon below. Each for as low as $1 a month. You can like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off.